Hey everyone, Lance here. I've bought myself another ultra-wide monitor to try out. So behind me you can see the box for the Asus ROG Swift PG348q ultra-wide gaming monitor. This monitor is the direct competitor to the Asus Predator X34, and although in my region the ROG is a couple of $100 more expensive, it boasts many of the same features as the Asus counterpart. Something I would like to point out before I got into the specs of the monitor is the fact that this and the Asus Predator X34 do use the same panel. Now that information isn't official, just what I've been seeing online on Reddit and things like that, but both monitors do use an LG panel, so that may be the case. The Republic of Gamers Swift PG348q from Asus is a 3440 by 1440 34-inch ultra-wide curved IPS gaming monitor. The monitor is overclockable to 100Hz and boasts NVIDIA G-Sync technology. This monitor has a 21:9 aspect ratio and a 5 millisecond response time, which I'll point out is 1 millisecond slower than the Asus Predator X34's advertised speed, the direct competitor for this monitor. For input, the Swift has DisplayPort and HDMI inputs, both cables of which are included, as opposed to my X34, which only included a DisplayPort cable. It also has 4 USB 3.0 ports and a 3.5mm jack. There is a removable I/O cover, which I think is a nice touch, and it also helps route the cables nicely towards the center. There is also a diagnostics port hiding back there too. The printed circuit board style design on the back is quite nice and helps tie in the huge heat sink that Asus states is twice the size of other monitors, and has some pretty beefy vents on the back to allow for airflow and cooling of the monitor. And believe me, after long periods of gaming at 100Hz with G-Sync, these get pretty warm, especially if your PC is exhausting nearby the screen. The stand has swivel, tilt and height adjustment, and the pivot has a lot more resistance than the X34, which moves very freely. The stand does need to be assembled yourself, but it is very simple. The monitor is VESA mountable and the stand has a quick release design, making it easy to snap the monitor off and on the base. For the light beacon that shines onto your desk, there is simply a ribbon cable in the stand with metal points, so you don't need to fiddle around with any wires when removing the panel from the base or vice versa. I will mention the stand design with ROG logo are a bit over the top for me, but this monitor has won design awards, including the IF Design Award 2016 and the CES Innovation Award, so what do I know? The frameless bezel has a nice brushed aluminium piece below the panel, which goes really well with Asus's Armor, Titanium and Plasma Copper colour scheme. Their name, not mine. The legs of the stand are quite far forward, but given the weight of this monitor, there's not much that can be done about that. It needs to cover as much area as possible to keep this beast standing upright. This monitor weighs 15.5 kilos. The cable management grooves are a nice touch as well, and you simply pop the cover off and you can route cables through there and keep them nice and tidy. I said it in my X34A review and I'll say it again. It's great having that additional desktop space for web browsing and word processing and things like that, especially with two windows side by side, although something like this may be a bit pricey if that was all you were planning to use it for because of the additional specs targeted towards gaming. Now the curve is something that people find very interesting, and the curve, you actually almost don't notice it while using the monitor. And in fact it's actually quite nice and can help reduce glare at the edges of the monitor, and it does feel quite natural when you are looking around the screen. Now some people also talk about the light bleed in the corners of these monitors, and at times I can see it, but it hasn't ever bothered me, and in the time I've had this monitor, when you're gaming in ultra-wide, you don't really even look at the extreme sides of the screen, and they're more in your peripheral vision. However, going from 21:9 to the normal old 16:9 panel was actually quite strange, and you find that you see a lot of the wall behind the monitor in your peripherals, or you notice the wall behind your monitor in your peripheral vision a lot more. So it's kind of a case of if you've seen it, it can't be unseen. Something to keep in mind is you will need a good GPU to run games at full resolution. Keep in mind that this is a 3440 by 1440 resolution panel, and 4K is 3820 by 2160. So you will need pretty beefy hardware. Asus does recommend a 980 Ti or greater for using G-Sync at 100Hz. I'm running two GTX 970s in SLI, and they struggle with some of the newer titles to push 100 FPS on Ultra and sometimes even high settings. I do set custom resolutions, and that's a good way around this, and that works really well. So some more demanding games I have been playing at 2560 by 1080, and I get 100Hz with this resolution without any issues. A joystick makes the on-screen display of this monitor a breeze to use. The buttons are on the back, but are large and distinct enough to know exactly which one you're pushing, and they also have a nice tactile click. There are 4 buttons plus the joystick used for navigating the menus, and this was very intuitive and extremely easy to use. There are 4 buttons, as I said. The first one seems to do exactly the same thing as clicking in the joystick. However, the second one enables some on-screen elements such as a crosshair, a power off timer, and an FPS counter. I've been using the FPS counter, but something to note is since the first time I enabled this, I can't figure out how to turn them off. Even if I cycle between them, it just switches, or powering off the monitor, that also doesn't seem to help. The third button is what Asus is calling their turbo key. Now this lets you quickly switch between 60 Hz and the overclock number you've set. So 100 Hz I think would apply to almost everyone with this monitor. And then the bottom button is a power off button for the monitor. The Swift has some great low blue light and gaming modes. I prefer turning the blue light down to avoid eye strain, and this is also helped by the flicker-free technology of the panel in the monitor. Within the on-screen display, there is also preset color modes for certain types of games, with different saturation and contrast settings for the types of games you are playing. I do want to note that there is no gamma correction in the on-screen display of this monitor. I've never really played with that on any other monitors, but if you are using this for professional applications as well as gaming, this is something you might want to use and something you may need to keep in mind. But in my opinion, to the untrained eye, the color and gamma of this monitor looks amazing. On Windows, I do have digital vibrancy at 100%, but within the Mac OS, you do get very nice color, and with digital vibrancy at 50%, the color is still amazing on this monitor. And also don't worry, if you don't like that Batman style ROG beacon shining on your desk, within the on-screen display is where you can turn that off or turn the brightness down of that as well. It's definitely a great experience gaming in ultrawide, however not all games support it. While more and more developers begin supporting it each day, it's pretty disappointing when you load up a game that you think would be amazing in ultrawide and then find that there's no first-party support. Far Cry Primal, The Division, Doom 2016, The Witcher 3, Project Cars, all those games support ultrawide, and those games are amazing to play in ultrawide. However, it's pretty disappointing that there are still AAA games that don't support it. For example, Dark Souls 3, Fallout 4, and even the re-release of Skyrim have no support. I also went back to play some StarCraft 2 again and found that there was no support for that either. Ultrawide isn't the mainstream as of yet, but hopefully there is developer support on its way, and I really hope it's soon. With a lot of games, you may find yourself, just like me, spending more time researching into ways to get them to run in the 21:9 aspect ratio than actually being able to play them. There is an awesome program that I would recommend to anyone wanting to game in ultrawide. It's called Flawless Widescreen, and it has a lot of tweaks and hacks to games that don't natively support ultrawide resolutions to allow them to run in those wider than 16:9 resolutions. I'll put a link down below. It's an amazing app, and I use it with a huge amount of games including Skyrim, Fallout 4, The Evil Within, and it's allowed me to run those games all hassle-free and make the most of all that screen space that I have on the Asus Swift. So that's most of what you need to know about the Asus ROG Swift Ultrawide Gaming Monitor. This is hands down the best ultrawide gaming monitor in my opinion at this point in time. after going ultra wide, there's not a single other monitor I'd even consider buying. I did also want to mention, for any of you greenies out there, the packaging is printed all with soy ink, so that's a plus for anyone that is nature conscious out there. But I did want to thank you guys all a lot for watching my review of this monitor. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. Feel free to subscribe. Down below is my Twitter, Instagram, all of that. And I'll also post a link to where you can download Flawless Widescreen so you can get gaming in ultra wide with more games. But hey, I'll see you guys all in the next one.